The first lesson I decided to look at was a PowerPoint that I do on counting up to make change. This is in our fraction unit, and our essential question that we follow for this is, how do you make change? So I start this lesson by having students review amounts for each coin. We have posters that we put up, and we talk about the amount that each coin represents. Then I go into giving an example and thinking aloud for my students how I would process this. As you can see here, I use this to help me when explaining to them how to go through it and how to count up to get the amount of change that you would get back. So then the next one we do together. So they do have manipulatives money, so play money that they use, as well as whiteboards, and we go through this one together, and we count up to make the change. After that, I let students work independently, and they are using their play money and their whiteboards to count up to make the change. As I see that students are understanding, I will have them help their table group if some members of their table group are struggling. So we do a few practice problems, students are they're understanding it. Then we go to an exit question, and this is how I kind of know who I need to pull for a small group to work on a little bit more. So students do this with, again, their play money and their whiteboards, and then that helps me to pull where I need to. So some UDL guidelines that I felt this PowerPoint met under representation, illustrating through multiple media. So use of the money manipulatives on the screen. Activators apply background knowledge, introduction of the lesson. We discussed our knowledge on coins and their worth, so kind of building that background knowledge so that they were able to move on to the counting up activity. Engagement, so they were fostering collaboration and community. Students were able to share their work with others in the classroom throughout this lesson. Students share with the entire class on the board. So one thing I didn't mention is after each slide, they would share with their seat partner how they got to their change, and then I would have one student come up. Action and representation, so supporting planning and strategy development, so modeling how to solve, discussing my thinking as I'm working, and then students doing the same when they share with their partner how they got to their change, and then having a few students share with the entire class. The accessibility, some of the images, I used the money that students were able to move around. The tables are included with headings. So I had the table with how much money they were spending versus how much money they had to get to. And then color, I think that the slides have consistent contrast throughout. In Rice's Chapter 8, under Principle 2, supporting multiple ways of interacting with materials, so the manipulatives, discussing multiple ways of getting to the same amount of change. So throughout the lesson, we discuss how some students may be using more quarters, more dimes, so we can still get to the same amount of change, it just could happen in different ways. Principle 3, providing multiple opportunities for collaboration. So think, pair, share, working with others to explain their thinking. The use of peer tutoring and support. So during the collaborative time when students were struggling, I had other students trying to help them get to where they needed to be. Encouraging active participation, exploration, and experimentation. So students exploring and working with the money, and then also students coming up to the board to show their findings. Considering math in an online setting. So Rice gave a few suggestions, just in general, not even necessarily for math, but using multisensory techniques in small breakout rooms, making presentations available for viewing later. I think this one's very important, especially for math, because sometimes I feel that we can understand something in the moment, but then when we go to do more problems at homework time, if we don't have an example, we can kind of forget, and it can get a little bit tricky. And then providing curriculum in multimedia formats, videos, audio, text, and images. So again, I think this one is important because math is something that can be a little bit tricky And I think that students need to see it in different ways. So they can't just see it in written form. Sometimes it's helpful to see videos, it's helpful to see pictures, the manipulatives. So I think that's definitely a useful tip. That's all. Thank you.